Attachment feels like love, security, and meaning, but more often it is fear disguised as connection, and Stoicism begins by exposing this illusion not to make life empty, but to make it lighter. We attach ourselves to people, identities, outcomes, and memories, believing they complete us. Yet the Stoics observed that the tighter we cling, the more we suffer, because attachment hands control of inner peace to external forces that are unstable by nature. When happiness depends on someone staying, succeeding, agreeing, or remaining the same, anxiety quietly enters the mind, because nothing external is permanent, and the fear of loss becomes constant pressure. Stoicism does not teach emotional numbness, it teaches clarity, showing that attachment becomes suffering when it exceeds reason, when it turns appreciation into possession and care into dependency. The mind begins to confuse "I value this" with "I cannot live without this." And this confusion creates fragility, because anything that can be taken away becomes a threat to inner stability. The Stoics recognized that pain does not come from losing things, but from believing we were entitled to keep them, and this belief poisons peace even before loss occurs. Attachment tightens around expectations, how people should behave, how life should unfold, how outcomes should reward effort, and when reality violates these expectations, frustration feels personal, even though reality never made such promises. By observing attachment honestly without judgment, the Stoic regains control, understanding that freedom begins with recognizing what lies outside authority. Because you cannot hold the river still, but you can learn to stand without drowning. This first step is not detachment yet, it is awareness, the quiet recognition that suffering increases not because life takes things away, but because we insist they should have stayed. And once this is understood, the door to Stoic freedom begins to open. Letting go of people is often misunderstood as bitterness, rejection, or emotional coldness, but Stoicism teaches something far more precise and humane. Release without resentment, distance without hatred, and separation without inner conflict, because hatred keeps attachment alive even after people are gone. When relationships end, expectations shatter, or connections change, the untrained mind looks for blame, replaying moments, words, and regrets. Yet Stoicism interrupts this cycle by reminding you that people act according to their own nature, limitations, and understanding, not according to your hopes or efforts. Disappointment arises not because people fail you, but because you demanded stability from what was never truly in your control. The Stoic does not rewrite the past or deny affection, they simply return ownership of behavior to its rightful place, the other person, while reclaiming ownership of response and peace. Letting go without hate means allowing someone to exist without wishing them harm or demanding fairness, recognizing that closure is not an external event, but an internal decision to stop carrying emotional weight that no longer serves growth. Resentment feels justified but leaves the door open, whereas calm detachment quietly closes it. Stoicism teaches that you may care without clinging, remember without longing, and forgive without returning, because forgiveness is not reconciliation, it is relief. When you release the need for explanation, apology, or validation, emotional energy returns to the present, where discipline, clarity, and purpose reside. The Stoic understands that holding on to anger gives past events authority over the present, and this authority weakens focus. By letting go without hate, you transform loss into composure, distance into dignity, and endings into quiet freedom, proving that strength is not measured by how tightly you hold on, but by how peacefully you can walk forward without looking back. The past has no power except the power you grant it through attention, and Stoicism teaches that while memory is unavoidable, imprisonment by memory is optional. Regret forms when the mind repeatedly revisits moments it can no longer influence, mistaking reflection for punishment, and convincing itself that different choices would have guaranteed peace. Yet the Stoics understood that no decision is made with future clarity, only with the knowledge available in the moment. To judge past actions with present awareness is not wisdom, it is cruelty toward yourself. Detachment from the past does not mean forgetting, denying, or erasing experience. It means learning without dwelling, extracting insight without reopening wounds, and allowing time to move forward without resistance. When regret dominates, the energy meant for improvement is redirected into self-blame, paralysis, and emotional fatigue, but Stoicism redirects attention to the present, the only domain where correction is possible. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that the mind always lives in the present, whether it drifts backward or forward, and suffering increases the further it wanders from now. Stoic detachment from the past requires acceptance not because the past was ideal, but because it is unchangeable, and fighting what cannot be altered wastes the strength needed for transformation. Memory becomes neutral when it is treated as information rather than identity, a record rather than a verdict. By releasing the belief that your worth is defined by previous mistakes, missed opportunities, or lost time, you regain the freedom to act decisively now. Stoicism teaches that redemption is found in present conduct, not in rewriting history, and peace emerges when the past is honored for its lesson but denied authority over the future, allowing clarity, focus, and discipline to replace regret with steady forward motion. The modern world is loud, reactive, and emotionally unstable, and Stoicism exists as a response, not by escaping chaos, but by refusing to let chaos dictate inner order. Emotional independence is the ability to remain grounded regardless of environment, opinion, or circumstance, and it begins with recognizing that emotions are reactions, not commands. Most people unknowingly outsource their peace to news, social media, relationships, and expectations, allowing external noise to shape mood and behavior, but Stoicism teaches that anything capable of disturbing your inner balance must first be granted permission. Emotional independence does not require suppressing feeling, it requires observing emotion with reason, understanding its source, and choosing response over impulse. When anger arises, the Stoic pauses. When fear whispers, the Stoic questions. When excitement overwhelms, the Stoic steadies, because emotional control is not rigidity. It is flexibility guided by awareness. Chaos loses power over a person who no longer reacts automatically, because reaction feeds disturbance while restraint disarms it. Stoicism trains the mind to remain neutral where others exaggerate, calm where others panic, and deliberate where others rush, creating psychological distance that protects focus and judgment. By refusing to absorb every stimulus, opinion, and provocation, emotional independence restores clarity, allowing action based on principle rather than mood. A Stoic does not deny the chaos of the world, they simply decline to live inside it, choosing instead a stable inner posture that remains firm whether life accelerates or collapses around them, proving that true resilience is not found in controlling circumstances, but in mastering the self within them. Loving without possession is one of the hardest disciplines Stoicism asks of the human heart, because attachment often disguises itself as care, and fear often disguises itself as devotion. Yet the Stoics saw clearly that love becomes unstable the moment it demands ownership, control, or permanence. To love in a Stoic way is to value presence without insisting on permanence, to appreciate connection without chaining your peace to its continuation, and to give affection without surrendering authority over your emotional stability. Possession creates anxiety because it converts appreciation into fear of loss, whereas Stoic love remains grounded by accepting impermanence as a natural law rather than a personal threat. This does not mean becoming cold or distant. It means engaging fully while remaining prepared to release gracefully, understanding that nothing external is meant to be held eternally. The Stoics believed that love guided by reason becomes stronger, not weaker, because it is free from desperation, jealousy, and control, allowing trust to replace insecurity. When love is not rooted in possession, it becomes calmer, clearer, and more generous, because it gives without bargaining and supports without anxiety. Emotional freedom within love protects dignity on both sides, preventing resentment when change occurs. Stoicism teaches that you may walk together without merging identities, care deeply without losing independence, and stay present without demanding certainty, and through this balance, love becomes a choice rather than a dependency, an expression of strength rather than fear, allowing connection to exist without threatening inner peace, even when circumstances inevitably change. Conflict is unavoidable wherever humans interact, yet Stoicism teaches that disturbance is optional, and the difference lies not in avoiding disagreement, but in maintaining inner order while it unfolds. In relationships, conflict often escalates because emotion arrives before reason, turning misunderstandings into personal attacks and temporary friction into lasting division. But the Stoic interrupts this pattern by refusing immediate reaction. Calm during conflict is not weakness. It is leverage, because restraint disarms aggression and clarity prevents regret. Stoicism advises observing the impulse to defend, interrupt, or retaliate, and allowing reason to regain control before speech or action, recognizing that peace is often preserved not by winning arguments but by protecting judgment. A Stoic does not seek to dominate conversations or force understanding that agreement is outside personal authority, but integrity of response is not. When disagreement arises, the Stoic focuses on behaving in a way they can respect afterward, rather than on being proven right in the moment. This approach prevents emotional residue, the lingering bitterness that damages trust long after conflicts end. Stoic calm transforms relationships by replacing reactivity with stability, allowing communication without escalation and boundaries without hostility. Even when resolution is impossible, composure remains attainable, because peace does not require external harmony, only internal alignment. Through this discipline, the Stoic remains grounded in conflict, turning situations that overwhelm others into opportunities to practice patience, wisdom, and self-command, ensuring that relationships do not erode inner peace, and disagreement does not compromise character. Expectation is the quiet agreement to suffer in advance, and Stoicism dismantles this agreement by teaching that while effort is within your control, outcomes are not, and confusion between the two is the source of anxiety, disappointment, and frustration. When the mind becomes attached to specific results, it begins negotiating with reality, interpreting delay as failure and uncertainty as injustice. Yet the Stoic accepts uncertainty as the natural condition of life, choosing to invest fully in effort while releasing claims over reward. Detachment from outcomes does not reduce ambition, it refines ambition, shifting focus from validation to excellence, from reward to responsibility, and from success to conduct. When expectations are loosened, peace stabilizes, because identity no longer rises and falls with results that were never guaranteed. Stoicism teaches that disappointment emerges not from effort, but from entitlement to reward, and freedom returns when entitlement dissolves. By committing to action without demanding outcome, the Stoic remains steady regardless of success or failure, capable of learning from both without emotional collapse. This mindset transforms work into practice, challenges into feedback, and uncertainty into training, freeing you from constant anticipation of what must happen next. Life becomes lighter when effort is honest and outcomes are received without resistance, and discipline continues uninterrupted by fear of failure or obsession with victory. Detachment from expectations allows you to move forward calmly, accepting whatever follows action as information rather than verdict, ensuring that peace is preserved not by controlling life, but by aligning intention with the only thing truly owned, your response. Many people believe that peace requires distance, withdrawal, or emotional walls, but Stoicism teaches a more refined truth. Inner peace is not created by isolation from the world, but by healthy separation within it. Withdrawing from people may silence noise temporarily, yet Stoic calm is built not by avoiding life, but by engaging with it without surrendering inner authority. Peace becomes sustainable only when it is carried internally rather than protected externally. Stoicism does not demand loneliness or rejection of connection. It demands clarity about boundaries, teaching that you may participate fully without absorbing every emotion, opinion, or expectation you encounter. When peace depends on solitude alone, it remains fragile, because the world eventually knocks again. Stoic inner peace is resilient because it is practiced in motion, in conversation, in stress, and in unpredictability. This discipline allows you to listen without losing yourself, to be present without being pulled, and to care without becoming absorbed. Connection remains meaningful, but identity stays intact. By learning to regulate attention and response, the Stoic remains socially engaged while internally stable, no longer needing avoidance as protection. Peace achieved without isolation restores balance between participation and self-command, allowing you to move through the world calmly, deliberately, and openly, proving that true serenity is not found by stepping away from life, but by standing firmly within it without surrendering control. Fear of loss shapes more lives than loss itself, and Stoicism teaches that liberation comes not from preventing endings, but from embracing impermanence with courage and clarity. Most people shrink from life because attachment convinces them that every gain must be guarded, every relationship tightly held, and every opportunity endlessly controlled. Yet the Stoic sees the truth. Nothing external is permanent, and trying to prevent loss only increases anxiety and diminishes presence. To live fully without fear of loss is to value experience without claiming ownership, to invest emotionally without surrendering independence, and to act boldly without attachment to result. The Stoic trains the mind to recognize that endings are natural, that change is inevitable, and that impermanence is not a threat but a teacher. By accepting mortality, uncertainty, and the fleeting nature of relationships, wealth, and success, one can participate fully in life while remaining emotionally sovereign. Joy becomes richer when it is not shadowed by fear, love becomes freer when it is not conditional, and decisions become wiser when they are guided by principle rather than clinging. Loss no longer paralyzes, regret no longer dominates, and presence no longer slips away into worry, because the Stoic's attention remains anchored in action and intention, not in the imagined permanence of what cannot be owned. This freedom transforms existence from cautious survival into deliberate engagement, proving that life lived without fear of loss is life lived fully, deeply, and with a resilience that cannot be shaken by circumstance or change. The Stoic journey of detachment reaches its culmination not in absence, but in mastery. Mastery of thought, emotion, and presence. After confronting attachment, letting go without hatred, releasing the past, maintaining emotional independence, loving without possession, practicing calm in conflict, detaching from outcomes, preserving inner peace without isolation, and living without fear of loss, the mind arrives at a singular clarity. Freedom exists not in controlling life, but in commanding the self within it. All principles converge here. Acceptance of impermanence, prioritization of intention over result, awareness over reaction, and connection without surrender. The Stoic no longer clings to what cannot be held, no longer depends on external validation, and no longer allows fear to dictate presence. Life continues to present challenges, change, and endings, yet inner authority, cultivated through practice and discipline, remains unwavering. This freedom allows full engagement, without attachment, calm in chaos without withdrawal, and love without dependence. Each action is deliberate, each choice grounded in principle, each moment fully inhabited, because mastery of self transforms fleeting experience into meaningful living. Through detachment, the mind becomes resilient, the heart becomes generous, and presence becomes profound. The final lesson is simple yet powerful. Peace is earned by returning authority to its rightful place within, and by participating in the world without surrendering to its uncertainties. To walk this path is to experience life not as a series of losses or victories, but as a continual practice of freedom, courage, and virtue, proving that the Stoic life, grounded in detachment, clarity, and disciplined engagement, is the most complete, empowered, and serene way to live.